For a while now, I've had people reach out to me every so often because they see I went to a coding boot camp and they're considering the same. And honestly, I think it's a really smart move if you're considering investing all the time and the money and basically putting your life on hold long enough to go through one of those programs. You kind of want to know what you're going to get into. So being asked all of those questions, it kind of sparked me to think, oh yeah, there are a couple of things I wish that I had known before I started my program. So I sat down and I came up with 10 things that I wish I had known before I started my coding bootcamp. So starting in reverse order today, we're gonna go with number 10. It matters which program you get into. It matters which bootcamp you choose, and I honestly did not do enough research before I started. I was so lucky that I chose probably the best option for me. I could have done a lot more research besides just talking to one or two people who went to Dev Bootcamp, which is the program that I ended up choosing. So as you're going through the different options, a lot of people might look for the percentage of grads who get jobs, and of course, that's interesting, but I've heard over and over again that those statistics can be skewed in so many different ways. The thing that I would look for instead would be, is there any level of consistency across their grads? Are they testing their grads and having them repeat sections? That's something that Dev Bootcamp did that I don't hear about a lot of other programs doing. Companies who worked with Dev Bootcamp could expect a certain level of competency from their grads. Repeating sections isn't the only way to get this level of consistency across the board, but if you dig into a program and see that that might be the case, that's definitely points for that program in my book. There has been some stigma in the past. How much can a person really learn in just some crash bootcamp course? So for that reason, I do think it is a plus to find the hardest course and the longest course that you can. So the bootcamp program that I went to was marketed as a 15-week program, and I did end up repeating a couple of those sections. So mine actually ended up being more like a 25-week program. Thing number 9, you're probably going to gain weight. I've seen people on Twitter talk about this. I've talked to people personally who went through my program, different programs. You will likely be much more sedentary than you usually are, and stress eating is for real, man. I don't know that it helped me emotionally, but I was an emotional eater. I am an emotional eater usually. So I had this high level of stress, and come on, the more Amy's frozen meals, the better. Number 8, pair programming is draining. I knew going into it that it was supposed to be helpful to be able to express out loud and walk through the steps that you were thinking in your head as you're going through this problem that you're going to solve. But oh my goodness, it is so hard. Your brain moves so much faster than your mouth ever does, and you are focusing on this problem. The closest thing that I can compare it to is like a really hard trigonometry problem or calculus problem where there are a lot of steps you have to think through. And here you are, like, I get stressed out when I have to do mental math in front of people. So it ended up being more like, 19 plus 6 is 25. 25-week program. So trying to go through these steps in my head, but also out loud and convey it to the other person what I was trying to work through, it was just really stressful. There's different styles of processing, right? So I tend to be a somewhat extroverted person. I really enjoy being in groups of people, and I get energy from being around people. But it turns out I am quite an introverted processor, so if I get this problem, I need some time to read it and let it soak in and let my mind wrap around it before I can just start talking about it. Some people are the total opposite. Some people need to be able to talk a problem out loud to be able to come to their solution at the end of it. So you've got all of these different styles of learning and communicating, and everyone is having stressful days, little sleep. Pairing was just really challenging in the program, and I wasn't expecting that to be the case, but I just hadn't been put into this position of needing to work out a complicated problem out loud. and wanted to be able to contribute as much as possible to my pair. Thing number 7 that I wish that I had known before I started my boot camp: know the prep work like the back of your hand. Like, keep practicing and make sure that you have a really good knowledge of everything that the boot camp is giving to you to learn before you start the actual program. A lot of programs are doing this these days to try to get people on a level playing field. I think it's smart. For my program, that portion was part-time. Looking back, I do think that I could have spent a lot more time on all of the sorts of data structures and algorithm practice. Even if they were really simple, I could have spent a lot more time doing that stuff, and it would have made the on-site portion that much easier because there was just so much to absorb all at once. Thing number 6 that I wish that I'd known before I started my boot camp: the likelihood that you are going to get burnt out at some point in the program is very high. I actually cannot think of one person that I know that's been through a boot camp program and didn't get burnt out. So because of this, I would recommend to anybody getting ready to start a program, try to tee up your resume and your LinkedIn profile so that you will have minimal work to do on that resume and LinkedIn by the time you finish your program. Thing number 5 that I wish I knew: this is not going to be like any other school that you've experienced before. So this is good news to anybody who really hated college or hated high school. And it's kind of bad news for anybody like me who figured out like how to master the system of getting good grades through years and years of school. At Dev Bootcamp, the teaching style was totally different. They were focused on helping the students learn how to learn, helping the students figure out what sorts of things can you Google to figure out the answer that you're looking for. I think I only got good grades in school because I had to practice so much. I needed the reps. I needed lots of problems to really drive home the point. Bootcamp does not give you that time. You are moving on, and you're not going to find a program ever that is the perfect speed and perfect level for every single student. I feel like it was a little bit too fast for me, but that even in and of itself was a really good lesson, because being a junior engineer joining any team, you're going to have so much to learn. You're going to have to feel pretty okay about not knowing everything. Number 4, not everyone has the same background as you. I kind of knew this going into the bootcamp program, but it didn't really sink in until I was actually on site. There were people who were in our program who had an app in the App Store. There were people who had minored in computer science. There was a girl who had already completed a boot camp. I was a total newbie. I had studied liberal arts in college, and I was pretty much always shoving my computer over to different friends, asking them to help me change settings on my computer. I didn't feel empowered to figure things out for some reason. I think that had a lot to do probably with socialization, growing up as a girl in the United States. Computer science wasn't really something that I thought about pursuing for a really long time. In the program is when I really started comparing myself to other people for the first time in this journey of wanting to become a developer. And it wasn't really fair because I was just much newer at this than a lot of other people were. The number 3 thing I wish that I had known before I started my coding bootcamp was you're pretty much never going to feel like you know it all. Back when I was just in the prep phase, I was not on site yet. That part was remote for our program. There was a lot of confusion. There were things that I didn't know, but I had a chance at some point to talk to some people who had already started the program, and I just looked up to them. They were up on a pedestal. They knew so much, obviously, because they had already been through what I had been through and made it on to the next level. Well, then I got to that level that they were at and realized, I don't know stuff still. But those people up in phase 2, up ahead of me, they know what's going on. And then I got to that level, and then I realized, well, I'll probably feel pretty similar to this when I'm in phase 3, but oh my goodness, some of the people that were coming back to help tutor and help mentor, they had jobs. They knew computers. I didn't know computers at that point because I was only in phase 2. And then I graduated and I got a job, The real takeaway is you're probably not going to feel like you have mastered the material, but it's important to know a lot of people feel that same way. Just don't let it stop you from turning around and helping mentor people who are a level below you, going ahead and trying to dig into really big challenges that you probably wouldn't expect to be ready for. Go ahead, just give it a try. You might really surprise yourself. Thing number 2 that I wish I'd known, nobody was actually forcing us to get our work done. It was something that we chose to do because there was a level of accountability. We knew that we had to reach some standard of knowledge. And if we didn't reach that, then our chances of repeating and spending more time in the program went up, or there was a point when people would get kicked out of the program. So the reason that I wish that I had known that or recognized that during my bootcamp program, or at least before I had graduated, was not because I wish I had done less work or anything. It was more so to understand how to continue moving forward, at least nearly at the pace that I had been going previously. During the boot camp, it just came down to the fact that I had a goal that I wanted to reach. I had a time limit on that goal, and I had some accountability built into my days. I was checking in, talking to people about my progress, what I had accomplished from the day before, how many challenges I had completed. In addition to that is the other thing that I think is so important for job search and for progressing in your coding abilities. I had made a habit of going into the boot camp every single day. It didn't matter if I didn't feel like it because I was really tired and really burnt out. And finally, the number 1 thing that I wish I had known before starting the boot camp that I went to: taking care of yourself, sleep, exercise, eating well is the number 1 priority that should be every boot camp's focus outside of attending class, especially sleep. Oh my goodness. Sleep is so important. During my program, I was spending on average 15 hours per day working on code. That is not sustainable. It was just not enough time for being able to sleep. If I could go back and do it again, I would get more sleep. I would spend less time on the curriculum and more time on sleep. If you are going through an extended period of time where you're trying to learn something, sleep is critical to creating long-term memory. If you are going through a program trying to learn on 4 hours of sleep, that's not enough. It's not enough. I went through most of the program probably on 5 and 6 hours of sleep. I wonder why I couldn't remember stuff. I wonder why things weren't sinking in. Had I slept more and had a better balance between the sleep and the workload that I was doing, I think I would have had an easier time. Same goes with exercise. I think it is really important to be dedicated enough to be willing to put in long hours, but I think I took it too far. I was constantly feeling stressed out because of the workload, but exercise is such a good way to counteract stress, as is sleep. So I think the stress just kept building and building and building, and it caused me to be extremely burnt out by the end of the program. You gotta take care of yourself, otherwise it doesn't matter if you can be a software engineer at the end of the day. You could end up with some chronic illness that you have brought upon yourself because of not taking care of your body. So if you have already chosen a boot camp, if you are already in a boot camp, or if you have already graduated a boot camp and are in the job search phase, check out these tips on life after boot camp. They will help you get prepared for a really great job search.